Hey guys, Bob here from Raw Strength and Muscle. We're going to do another ripped book review. I've been doing these a long time ago, but I stopped and I'm going to start doing them again. And I'm going to start with the number one single book that has truly changed my life. And that is, of course, Dinosaur Training by Brooks Kubik. Now, it's interesting because this changed every single aspect of my life, although it's a training book. It doesn't even talk much about nutrition. So how could a training book change every single aspect of my life? And the fact is, it gave me permission, okay? When I started reading this book, okay, and I have no idea why I started, because social media wasn't our thing back then. Basically, you bought a magazine and there were all these tiles, like, 2-page publisher, advertisement where he had like all these little books. And for some reason I was like, Dinosaur Training, there's a picture on the cover of a guy holding up a barrel, and he's dressed in one of those onesies that they used to wear back in the 1800s or whatever, the strongmen and the circuses. And I was like, for some reason I just bought the book, and it started talking about hard work and stuff. I'm like, whatever, I'll buy the book. What this book did was it gave me permission, okay? At that point, I had been training. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It was hard to get information back then. It was hard to get different opinions back then, pre-internet. So all I was really doing, like most people, was buying muscle magazines. Muscle magazines back then were basically bodybuilding magazines. Bodybuilding basically means how this giant, huge person gets in the shape he gets into to stand on stage with a bunch of baby oil and a thong, okay? There's nothing athletic about it. There's not like a strength sport aspect. Powerlifting, I've heard of it. I didn't even know what the lifts were in powerlifting. I mean, there were no such things as powerlifting gyms. CrossFit wasn't even a concept back then. So basically all I had been exposed to in terms of knowledge was the bodybuilding routines that I read in the magazines, the bodybuilding routines I read in the books that were based upon the magazines, and the people that I saw doing bodybuilding in commercial gyms. So I had no idea that there was this whole world of other exercises out there, okay? I noticed for myself that I did well on low reps. People are doing, 10, 12, 15 reps, whatever. I always did well on 5 reps. I also noticed that I grew bigger and stronger, faster and more efficiently if I did fewer sets of heavy reps. So instead of doing a million sets of a million exercises, I would just do maybe 3 exercises for my chest, okay? Or I do 2 triceps, 2 biceps exercises. Basically, I worked out on like a bodybuilding type routine, Monday through Friday, arms, legs, shoulders, back, and chest, 5-day routine. But I was lifting really heavy, and I didn't do like preacher curls. I didn't do like isolation exercises. I did like standing easy bar curls, and then I did overhead extensions with a heavy dumbbell. Then I did alternating dumbbell curls standing, and then I did push downs with a V-bar, okay? Because those were the exercises I could use the most weight on, okay? Those were the exercises that I could do for a couple sets of 5 reps. Every time I got the 5 reps and it was easy, I added more weight, and I was growing like a weed, growing bigger and stronger, okay? But I was still like, I felt like I had to be in the bodybuilding mentality. Now, when I read this book, this guy started talking about things like 20 rep squats, okay? Where basically what we do is you just do 1 set of squats, but you do 20 reps with your 10 rep max, which means you leave the bar on your shoulders and you take a break. And then you leave the bar on your shoulders and you do another rep, and then you leave the bar on your shoulders. So you've got the bar on your back for like 2-3 minutes straight, okay? And you don't stop until you do 20 reps. Now, if you do that and you can do leg press and leg extensions, you didn't do that right, okay? I learned about that in this book. I read the book Super Squats, but I would never read Super Squats, which is about the whole routine around 20 rep squats, if I hadn't read this book, okay? It gave me permission to work out 3 times a week with heavy, heavy exercises, okay? It gave me permission to go ahead and do stiff-legged deadlift, which I'd never really seen anybody doing back then. And not the way it is now where, booty girls do it with whatever weights and reps. I would do like 5 sets of 5 reps with heavy ass weight. I was using heavy ass weight in stiff-legged deadlifts. People were saying, oh, you're gonna break your back. I was saying, yeah, you don't have a fucking backbone, you little pussy. I'm gonna do this, okay? If you think I'm irreverent, if you think that I have an interesting attitude when I talk about these videos, you need to listen to some things this guy talks about. This is the guy who talked about how, you gotta do progressive overload. He says he knows a guy who hasn't changed his weights that he works out with for 5 years. For 5 years, he does the exact same sets, exact same reps, exact same exercise, exact same weights. He'd gone through a divorce, got remarried, and got divorced again. So he had 3 women. He changed his women more often than he changed his workout weights in those 5 years, okay? He talks about stuff like chrome and fern land, okay? Where you walk in, they have like chrome dumbbells and little ferns in the corner, and everybody has their $500 million water bottle, and everybody, looks pretty and stuff like this, and nobody works hard. Basically he talks about how, all those machines would be much better, put to much better use if you would melt them down and make them into like heavy objects just to lift, like barrels and kegs, and make them into like barbells and dumbbells, okay? He basically is very irreverent. He gives you permission to think. He talks about how it's okay to do, weighted dips instead of bench press for your chest and for your triceps. I mean, that's my favorite exercise right now for upper body. That's the only chest exercise I've been doing for a long time. I also do ring push-ups with a heavy-ass weighted vest on, okay? You don't really see anybody doing that. This guy gave me permission to create what is now the Raw Strength and Muscle workout. This guy gave me permission when I started finding out about low-carb diets. I heard about the steak and eggs diet, heard about Rio Blair, heard about Vince Gironda, started researching, experimenting, creating my own diets. Everything that I have now came from this book. And not directly, it's just he gave me permission in this book to go ahead and think for myself. If I want to do like weighted calisthenics, he gave me permission to do that. He gave me permission to go on a low-carb diet for bulking as well as cutting. He gave me permission to do the wrestler's bridge. I didn't know what the fuck the wrestler's bridge was until I read this book, and I had a hard time finding it out because it was pre-internet. But wrestler's bridge, doing weighted calisthenics, everything that I do came from this book. And it's not because I learned it, it's because I got permission by reading this book to do what I wanted to do. And this has actually gone into other areas of my life, okay? If I wanted to be single forever, if I wanted to date multiple women, if, whatever. I mean, if I didn't want to follow the norm, okay? If I didn't want to work a job, but I wanted to be a commission-based salesman, or if I wanted to, do an online business back when people were like, oh yeah, the online businesses, that they just busted. There was this online .com boom, and then the .com bust, and now nobody's going to be working in the internet anymore. Yeah, right. Okay. This book gave me permission to go my own way in every single area of life. I mean, he's one of the people who kind of gave me the idea that if you see what everybody else is doing, it's probably wrong because most people suck. Okay. So do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. And this is basically, like I said, the book that gave me permission to think that way. Now, yes, this does have incredible content here. It does talk about using like objects, picking up bags of sand, picking up kegs of water, kegs of sand, logs, using stuff like that instead of just using barbells and dumbbells. It talks about the 5x5 system. 5x5 system is one of the bases for my workouts ever since I read this book, and is one of the bases for the Raw Strength and Muscle workout came from this book. The 20-rep squat system. I've done a lot of research and a lot of testing myself on the 20-rep squat system. I got it from this book. He talks about training your hands and your forearms, okay, grip strength. Got it from this book. There's a whole lot of things that I got from this book. And like I said, it legitimately changed my life. The other book that changed my life that I'm also going to review is Chuck Norris's Secret to Inner Strength. The difference between these two books is when I read The Secret to Inner Strength, I was a kid. I basically, was living with my grandparents. They were, I was constantly being told what to do, what to believe, what not to believe. Anything that came up that wasn't, it was basically like living around a bunch of haters and being told, oh, no, that's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. Imagine living controlled by internet trolls. That's how my life was. I looked at the book, and it was a great book, and I read it, but I did not have the opportunity to get the wisdom from Chuck Norris's book. Okay, if I had the freedom to think and to absorb the information, Chuck Norris's book would have changed my life. I would have had a completely different life path. When I read this book, this was during the point where I went 25 years without seeing My family, anybody I knew. I basically went for college for a year, went to the Army for 7 years, lived overseas for about 15 years. Basically, this book, I was completely alone. I did not have anybody close to me telling me what to do, negative thoughts. So when I read this, I was able to believe and to implement it immediately, implement the mindset. I was basically in the situation where they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Chuck Norris appeared when I was a kid, and I didn't have the inner strength, interesting because that's the name of his book, to actually believe and implement what I believed was the truth. But when this book came out, I immediately did have the opportunity to think for myself, and that's exactly what I did. So like I said, I absolutely positively suggest everybody read this book. If you read this book, it will change your strength training forever, even if it's just a matter of giving you different ideas. But even if you don't train, even if you don't care about your body, even if you don't do anything, the irreverent style of this book, the way that he states what he believes in and doesn't care what anybody thinks, and just the way that he just thinks for himself and teaches you to think for yourself, is the absolute essence of this book. So even if you don't train, read this book and live your life the way that this book is written. Okay, the way that he talks about other people, the way they train, the way he talks about, he gives just obvious examples about how this training obviously works. Basically, if you just read this book, you can apply it to any area of your life. So like I said, this is absolutely positively the #1 book on any subject whatsoever that I've ever read that has absolutely positively changed my life. I recommend you read it too. So Dinosaur Training by Brooks Kubik. Got to give it a read. Comment down below if you enjoyed this. Comment down below if you've read the book and what you thought about it. Comment down below if there are any other books that you'd like me to talk about. And comment down below if you want me to do more of these ripped book reviews. Aside from that, I appreciate you guys watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't. Check out rawstrengthandmuscle.com. That is my hub. It has all of my social media platforms on it. It has all my products, my coaching, my group coaching on it. So check that out. Aside from that, I will see you guys in the next video.